Long before they claimed the heavens, Bane, Bhaal, and Myrkul were three men dragging their gear through the mud of Faerun. These warlords shared a psychopathic obsession with the conquest of death, believing that divinity was simply a prize waiting for the most ruthless candidate. They began their acquisition at the Monument of the Ancients, where they cornered and slaughtered the primordial Merum of the Great Spear to harvest his essence. Using this stolen energy, the trio shattered the boundary of the mortal realm and marched physically into the outer planes. This ascent was a project of brute force attrition, built on a foundation of theft and overreaching hubris. Their destination was the Grey Waste, a vast battlefield of calcified bones that smells of dust and ancient, forgotten rot. The march stripped them down. Their armor rusted, their bodies failed, but their willpower refused to let them collapse. To reach the center of this wasteland, they had to carve a path through endless legions of mindless skeletons and wraiths. They focused on a single looming certainty, an apocalyptic battle at the Bone Castle against the god of death. Every step forward was driven by the conviction that they were walking toward their own violent ends. When the warlords reached the throne room, they kicked the doors open with their weapons drawn, expecting an immediate strike. Instead, they saw Jergal, an insectoid scribe sitting at a desk, mummified in a gray cloak. No hellfire rose to meet them. The only sound in the massive hall was the rhythmic scratching of a quill against a ledger. The trio's violent momentum hit a wall of silence. Jergal barely acknowledged their intrusion, continuing his work with chilling focus. The warlords had prepared for a war, but they were met with a shrug. Jergal finally spoke, his voice like the whisper of a tomb. He told them, "I have grown weary of this empty power. Take it if you wish." The underworld's master was offering to walk away from his throne without a single blow struck. Jergal stood up, abandoned his seat, and offered the dominion of the dead to the men who had come to kill him for it. The alliance between the three warlords fractured instantly. They drew their swords on each other, realizing that while the throne was vacant, only one could sit on it. The takeover succeeded because the incumbent was simply too bored to resist. Jergal stepped between the brawling warlords like an exasperated manager and proposed a way to divide his responsibilities. He snapped off his own skeletal finger bones and suggested a game of knucklebones to settle the matter of who would rule what. This chart shows the result of that gamble. Bane won the game and claimed the province of tyranny and strife. Myrkul took second place to rule over the dead, leaving Bhaal with the remaining office of murder. The governing forces of human suffering were decided by the bounce of a few dry bones on a stone table. Divinity did not bring light. The weight of these portfolios caused their mortal bodies to necrotize, forcing a painful physical mutation into their new roles. These were the Dead Three, no longer men, but the walking incarnations of the dark offices they had won. Jergal stepped back into the shadows, assuming his new position as their seneschal. He picked up his quill and began recording the names of the new management in his ledger, showing no concern for the horror he had handed over. The seat of power was no longer empty. New management had arrived to fill the desk.